You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. Today, we have another show line for y'all. Today, we have Dr. Christiane Schroeter. She is a TEDx speaker, a business and wellness coach, a professor, a best-selling author, and she is the host of Happy, Healthy, Hustle podcast, ranked in top 1% globally. So we're going to learn the secrets, how she got there. Man, that's pretty awesome. With her signature Petite Practice framework, Christiane helps entrepreneurs achieve big results through small strategic actions. She brings a unique blend of health, economics, entrepreneurship, and real-world strategy, empowering professionals to not just work smarter, but scale faster and lead with confidence. She has a website. You can go to drchristiane.com, and you got to spell out doctor. So once again, I want to say welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So excited to be here today. And audience, this is going to be a great one. I'm definitely going to share some amazing secrets, and let's do it, right?
When you think about the background and the inspiration behind all of this, with your diverse background as professor, coach, and TEDx speaker, and best-selling author, what originally sparked your passion for blending wellness with entrepreneurship?
I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones that take care of themselves. To be really an entrepreneur, you have a tremendous role. You are really the person that people look at, whether you're hiring people, whether you're just reaching out to the community, and of course your clients. And so they don't want to see some person that's completely burned out and stretched thin. They want to see somebody that's inspiring and vibrant and showcases what this product does, or the service, the transformation. And you can really only do this when you're feeling your best, and wellness should be at the forefront of your mind with all decisions when you're running your business.
When you look at how many entrepreneurs, they have this chase hustle effect going on. And I don't think it's ever going to slow down, because I think people are hard-headed and they feel like the harder they work, the better things get. And that could be some room for argument. How do you help them redefine success as a healthier approach?
Frequently, it's not really that additional hour that you spend at the computer. I have a PhD in economics, and there's a concept that's called a marginal, right? Marginal is like one more hour, a marginal benefit of doing something, or the marginal cost of doing something. So let's use these two together right now. I would say the marginal benefit of spending one more hour is not necessarily going to benefit your work. I think what you should rather think of, instead of spending one more hour at the computer, spend that one more hour doing something like a walk, reading a book, spending time with loved ones. And the benefit of that one is going to be far more than that hour that you sit staring at your screen. I can honestly tell you, and I love the beautiful introduction that you read, Shamaya, my best ideas did not come staring at the computer screen. They came when I was doing a walk. They came, I know this is very famous, but for me it was totally true, taking a shower. They did not come while I was looking at that computer. So I would really encourage you, if you want to be the best version of yourself, take care of yourself. Don't feel you're stretching yourself thin, because you step away, you're going to come back with more energy and more focus and more clarity. And that is something that will actually go far in your business, because you're going to be the creative, inspiring leader that everybody wants to see.
And speaking of clarity, with your academic background in health economics, how has that helped influence the way you approach business coaching?
Oh, I love that question. Initially, I very much focused on creating models that combine food intake with weight changes, right? So, for instance, if you were to drink a Coca-Cola every single day, how would that change your body weight over the course of 1 year? And now if you think about this, it's exactly what I teach with my Petite Practice. Because let's reverse engineer it. Let's say you wouldn't drink that soft drink every single day. How would that change your day at the end of that 1 year? Because it's 365 days where you're not consuming that high caloric beverage and maybe you're drinking a water or a low calorie drink. Does actually over time, over 365 days, really impact your health, your well-being. And so my coaching very much always focuses on that principle. In order to see big results, we don't have to take big steps. It's really these small steps, these petite practices that lead to that big outcome. So already in my wellness coaching, I always let my clients choose what wellness means for them. For everybody, it's something different. And then I also let them choose how they're going to get started with their business. But I am, at the end of the day, still a coach, a professor, and very much a German with structure in my mind. So I will follow up and ask, so which one did you choose? The choice is yours. But I will hold you accountable once you make that choice. And I would love to know what progress you made after you make the choice. So that's really how I overarch my business. And that's how my clients see their results, because I will check in with them and I will hold them accountable. Once they make their choice, they will actually have to get moving.
I believe accountability is a very powerful thing to experience, because if you have people that have been at the top or at the level that you're striving to be at, that's just going to help you rise up to the occasion, and it's going to really introduce yourself to the reality of who you are today, but also introduce you to the reality of what could be in the future. And that takes action, not just, happy thoughts. And if the world was that easy, I don't think we would ever need a podcast show or a news channel to look at. So my next question is, when you look at your strategy of Petite Practice, the framework is all about small strategic actions leading to big results. What's one simple habit that an entrepreneur that's watching us right now could start today that makes a massive difference over time?
I would say, and actually have a calculator on my blog page. It lets you plug in, even if you just read 2 pages in a book per day, how many books you can read per year. I would say every successful entrepreneur should be reading books. And I'm going to leave this up to you, whether you're going to read Harry Potter or a business book. I think it's just the fact that you immerse yourselves in the language of somebody else that's tremendously powerful in your communication, whether that's verbal communication in your writing, or even when you think strategically in your brain of how the characters are introduced, etc. I mean, of course, I'm a business coach. I read about a book per week, and most of the time it's actually business books. But it doesn't have to be, right? If you feel like your reading is your leisure time and you absolutely love reading a certain type of genre, reading is always better than not reading, right? Yeah. So that's my number one suggestion to you. Even if it's just 2 pages per day, I would strongly encourage you to immerse yourself into the written word. And now with that, I also have to introduce you to one of my other secrets. I told you this is going to be secret packed. So I read a lot, but I don't read like hours per day. I break it up into these 15-minute increments. Secondly, when I walk, I listen to my books. So I have a lot of books behind me, and I still like looking up things and then highlight quotes or certain principles and concepts. But I actually listen to books usually on 1.5, 1.75 speed. And that's my secret behind reading so much, that I essentially download books. My favorite thing is if the author reads it, it's beautiful. It's like you have somebody in your ear that tells you a business story. But that was my number one suggestion to you. First, start reading. Second, make time for it. It does not have to be a big amount of time, 10, 15 minutes, maybe 2-3 times per day. And you'll be surprised how much you learn, how your business will change, and how your interactions with others will change. Because think about it, you always have something to talk about. You don't have to talk about yourself. You could say, what are you currently reading? Because I just read X, Y, and Z, and I just thought this was so fascinating that this happened. And it's always opens the door to a beautiful conversation. It makes you an interesting person. You're well-rounded, really opening up your minds to understanding different perspectives. It makes you a much better leader, also a much better salesperson, because you understand clients' issues, opportunities, and of course their problems. So I highly encourage you to start reading.
I think that's a good concept because the fact, like you said, it makes you sharper, and if you are a dull person, it makes you, like you said, more interesting. And I like that because it makes me think about when you drive a certain route somewhere, sometimes having a different route expands what you know is true and what's out there. And when you're too narrow-minded, then you limit yourself from opportunities. So I fully agree. And I like that. I hope our listeners and viewers take that to heart because I think, like Dave would say, reading is fundamental. So appreciate you sharing that insight. That's really good stuff right there. When you think about how fear can often keep a person from starting or scaling the business, what's one mindset shift that you have experienced in your own personal career that's allowed you to move past fear into taking action?
Yeah, that's a very common thing. So you kind of like feel you're just churning along, but you don't really see results, even though you put in more work. As I mentioned earlier, that one extra hour or the one extra investment, you just don't see it on the other end that it actually seems to be worth it. Now, I have two suggestions for that. One is we don't always immediately see the payoff. Sometimes it's kind of like the long game. For instance, going onto Pinterest. You're not immediately going to see when you start some Pinterest posts that people are going to save them and create boards with your Pinterest posts. It's the long game. Or maybe on social media, the same story. It's the long game. So first, you have to be patient. Secondly, my suggestion to you would be you have to stay consistent. The fear sometimes happens because you're just becoming impatient and you're thinking, why is nothing happening? Well, the magic is really that by chipping away at it, whether that's one time per week you post something on your blog, or maybe 3 times per week you post something on Pinterest or your social media, that is really when the transformation happens, because your consistency will pay off in the long run. And that's when you're going to see the scale. None of these influencers or big social media people were overnight successes. To us, it looks this way. But if you scroll all the way down, their feed at the beginning looked just like ours, right? They didn't have a lot of followers. It's just that they did what sometimes is uncomfortable. They were just determined to make it work, and they kept up consistency and determination. And the way that you can do this is nobody is special. You can just think of yourself by being consistent and being determined. I'm going to eventually see the outcome. And I think that frequently as an entrepreneur, you somehow feel you're always lagging behind, which is absolutely not true. Because you can be actually the leader by being consistent and by being determined. So the scale will happen. It's just sometimes it seems there are these overnight success stories out there. In reality, not. So don't look right and left. Just focus on your lane and keep doing what you're doing, because it's going to come. You just need to stick to it.
Yeah, like Dave say, stay in your lane, because I would say this is easy and very comfortable and convenient to be on the road after construction is over. But the true headache is when it's under construction and you have to be patient until the job is done. And I think that's how we are personally. Like, when we look at ourselves, we are constantly under construction. And as far as we're trying to level up or get better or whatever we're trying to do, we have to have that perspective. If we are always treating ourselves under construction, then we are being consistent and doing what is necessary, do the blood, sweat, and tears until we can appreciate the nice lemonade and sitting back and relaxing and taking a little bit more naps. But until then, we have to earn those opportunities of window of time. So when you, by the way, listen, I'm Refocus Radio, watching this online, talking to our guest today, Dr. Christiane Schroeter. Go to her website, drchristiane.com. When you look at the impact you've been able to make with your own platform, global impact with your podcast show, when you look at the process of just finding not just your audience, but also finding your rhythm. Because it's dark out there when you are in the beginning. Like, no one knows your show. You don't know who's listening. But speaking of consistency, how have you learned along the way what works with your platform and what doesn't?
Beautiful. Yeah, actually, and this is a great suggestion I have to anybody out there. So just when I was giving my TED Talk, I had the same, you mentioned this so beautiful earlier, the fear, right? Of getting on the stage and speaking to a live audience, 1,000 people right there. And you don't know the majority of them, of course, right? Yeah, I actually had some of my previous students come that were in my classes 10 years ago, and some of my clients, my family, of course, was there, but you can't really see them. So what you need to always think about is in those moments when you're feeling, I don't feel like writing that blog post or putting out that YouTube video or putting out that Pinterest post because there's probably only 3 people looking at it. Yay, that's amazing. There are 3 people looking at it. Even if it's just one person looking at it, you're changing that one person's life. That's a pretty good feeling if you think about that, right? So when you're stepping on a stage, publishing a book, clicking publish on a podcast post, whatever you do to put yourself out there, just think, even if it's just for that one person, that was already worth it. Because in reality, that's just how it starts. It's just a little spark. And then that spark will build momentum. It's like a ripple effect. And you are just creating the ripple effect by maybe with that 10th blog post or your 10th YouTube video, maybe there are going to be 2 or 3 people that are now reading or watching you. But if you don't keep it up, they miss out. And that one person that really loved it is missing on it. So you need to think, now I owe it to that one person that watched the YouTube video. I actually have to keep this up now. And that's how I think how I moved from being a podcaster to being an author to being a speaker, that people ask me about it. They say, oh man, I really like that podcast episode that you published. And I was, oh, you actually listened to this? I didn't even know. And then I thought, why in the world am I doing this if nobody listens to this? But you sometimes don't realize because you're on the other end and you're just churning along, editing videos, putting the covers together, writing the show notes, blah, 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 blah. And you're so in the depth of it that you don't even think about, right? It's like a mailbox that somebody actually opens the mailbox and takes out the mail and is really excited to see your podcast episode. That's what you have to think about. The transformation you're creating in somebody's life. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes are so in the depth of it that they don't even know what impact they have. And I think on those days when it's tough, just keep going, right? Because even if like sometimes you mess up and whatever technology is not in your favor, or maybe you send out an email with a typo or something, that's awesome, right? Great. So yeah, just keep going. It's not always going to be perfect, but you are going to be the one that gets up and keeps going, and that will make it perfect.
It's like we said earlier about the long game, and if people really think about this, is wherever you start, you watching this, you start a YouTube, you start a channel, you start a business, hooray, you throw some confetti and you celebrate for that moment. But after the confetti falls, you got to clean up the room. You got to get things back in order. You got to show up the next day. And the funny thing about burnout is, for every person's experience is different. But from my personal experience, I believe burnout happens when you look too much inward to yourself. When you remind yourself of your why, then you start to think about the long game, about who am I impacting. And then that's when you start getting back in the groove. You start understanding, okay, this old system I did, Windows 95, it's time to upgrade. I have to go to the next level. So I need to find out what is missing. What can I do to get to that next upgrade? And then once that upgrade happens, we can throw confetti again. But it's the same thing. Now we have the responsibility to probably clean a bigger room. But it's okay because the systems that we learn in the old outdated system, it becomes our foundation. So we now set a standard. What's your take on that from an entrepreneur yourself?
Oh, I love this comparison so much with the confetti. I actually had a whole podcast episode about it where I compared this experience you just talked about to when I was a teenager or young adult in Germany going out to nightclubs. And one day, it was on Saturday morning, I realized I forgot a jacket the previous night when we went out. So we drove back during the daylight and realized that nightclub that looked so glamorous in the evening the night before really wasn't that fancy on Saturday morning. And there were a lot of people just cleaning stuff up. You mentioned that, confetti, etc. And I just kind of took me totally by surprise because I expected this nightclub would always be glamorous, full of lights and just clean and beautiful. But all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, these people are working here all day on Saturday to get this place ready for Saturday evening. And then they do it again. And they do it again. And I didn't even realize that this whole behind the scenes was happening. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, that's what, when we look at others, that's what we don't see, that these people that are on the top, there was a lot that happened behind the scenes that we didn't even think about. They might have had health issues, family issues, technology issues. I love that you mentioned that. Financial issues. We didn't even see that because we just see that now they are on the top. So you have a very important role. Instead of just sharing your confetti, share with us those little moments when the technology is not working, when maybe you're struggling and trying to figure out, should I do this particular book cover? Should I do that book cover? Because sometimes you just sit there and you look at it, A, B, A, B. It's like at the eye doctor, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then it's like, well, why am I doing this? You could just ask the audience, right? That could be your next post on social media. Do you like this book cover? Do you like this book cover? Or your YouTube video. Maybe it's the outtake of something that you said wrong. And your audience actually loves this maybe even more than the podcast episode that is super polished. So I think as an entrepreneur, your role really is to share all that messy behind the scenes because it will inspire others to start their own business. I always think motivation is great, but it's not leading to results. Results really come from inspiration because inspiration are the external and the intrinsic drive. And I think that sometimes motivation, we're all motivated to do stuff, but we just don't get off the couch and do it, right? But the inspiration is what your role as an entrepreneur could be. You could be inspiring somebody else to run their business because they see that it's not just beautiful. You make your mess your message. And you think, my mess made me the message to start a business that somebody else had in their head. And now they're getting it out of the head and they're actually sitting on the computer and they're starting to look and making this feasible.
Sometimes failure is the best flavor. Without it, you don't have any substance or stories to tell. And some of the best stories come from the most dramatic scenes. I mean, that's what makes movies great. We don't cheer on the hero unless he has a bad spot where he falls, because now we're hoping that they become that hero. So that should be every one of our motivation when we hit the wall and it's like, yo, what happened here? Well, one, you're embarrassed. Two, you're like, okay, I don't know. And three, you're like, what's next? Well, hopefully three is not to be a vicious cycle and start back to square one and repeat it. Because now you're just going in circles, doing donuts, and that is not going to help you or the people that you serve. So that said, watching I'll Refocus Radio and talking to our guest today, Dr. Christiane Schroeter. Go to her website, drchristiane.com. When you think about what it takes to be bold as a business person, to your point, being boring, not reading, not exploring, not adapting, not developing, it's just a recipe for regret. What have you learned over the years that keeps that boldness strong, even when you have to rest and reflect? What's your secret sauce on just keeping that boldness intact?
You have to share your goals with others. Could be with yourself first, just saying it out loud in the mirror. I want to, whatever that is, create a business on whatever that would be, right? Fill in the blank right now. Say it out loud to yourself in the mirror, to your partner, to your children, the neighbor down the road, the person at the coffee shop. The more you share your dreams, your vision with others, the more it becomes your reality. Because by explaining it to somebody else, you're anchoring it in your mind. And that is really, I think, what bold leaders do. That they are not afraid to share their dreams with others. And I can tell you one thing, if there's people that laugh about it, they're probably just jealous. So laugh with them. Like, I thought it was kind of crazy too, but here I am, I'm actually doing it, right? And if they still laugh and they start making fun of you, I don't think it's meant to be. Sorry about that. They're probably just not there to be your high five cheerleaders that throw confetti when you succeed on that first step towards your bold journey. I think boldness comes from being assertive, being clear, and you can only do that when you verbalize what you really want to do with your life. And at the beginning, you might be like, I actually don't know. There's always something that sounded really, really good at one point in your life. Maybe it wasn't yesterday or the week before, but there's always something. You just have to dig down deep and think about that, or go on that walk and start thinking about it, right? Or read a book and get inspired.
I'll say this, just to piggyback on what you said about people laughing. If you keep watching the wrong people, it's like driving with your eyes looking at a tree. Eventually, you're going to crash. So you got to keep your eyes on the prize. You have to stay locked in on what truly matters, and also surround yourself with people that's going to pull you up, because most of the people laughing, they don't have a website. So carry on.
Love that. And I think, just from my research in health economics, if you think about the healthiest people and what their lifestyles are, of course, they have a certain routine down and certain things that they eat and workouts and blah, 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 blah. But their environment is truly plugged into that. So if you hang out with people that sit on the couch and eat a bag of Doritos every evening, they are not going to be your inspiration to become healthy because it's going to take so much willpower to do that. And that's over time pretty exhausting, right? So you need to think, who are the people I could surround myself with that are those leaders in entrepreneurship? And again, that's why I love business coaching. I could inspire you to start your business, right? Alone, it's really hard. In vacuums, it's really hard to really create something amazing. If you think about, just growing a plant in a vacuum, hard, right? But you need to surround yourself with that true environment. You need to have the people that lead the lifestyle that you want to lead, that read the books that you would love to read, that eat or work out the way that you would love to work out. And they are just going to take you along, because guess what? If they have the right mindset, they are just going to embrace you being part of their communities. And that's what you need to succeed. You need to plug into those communities. So what we're doing right now here is, we've never met in person, Shemaya and I, but we already built community. And of course, with you, by sharing our message. So you need to get in touch with Shemaya, with myself, maybe with other people that are commenting under this podcast. And you need to start the communication and share your goals, because then it will create momentum and that will create action.
Have you seen the visual meme of the guy who's staring at the mountain versus the guy who's staring at the sun, sunrise?
I love this.
The reason why that came up to mind is because throughout this whole conversation, I'm a visual person. Like, I literally play movies when people talk. I can't help but just think about that meme, because in life, you have two choices. You explore or you quit. There's no other option. It's either, yeah, I'm going, or two, I'm quitting. I want people who's watching this and listening to us talk, think about that. How many more days, hours, weeks, months, years are you going to stare at the mountain or whatever that's dark and gloomy? Because sometimes it just takes one shift to see the sunrise, and then you're well on your way to the new chapter. The problem is we want to write the whole book in one page.
I love this, and I will definitely look at that meme, or maybe you can share it with me after the show, because that seems exactly, I'm a visual learner too, that seems exactly along my lines. And to add on to this as well, that sometimes I get this question where somebody tries something and they just don't see success. And then I tell them, well, have you shared that with your audience, what you're trying to do? Because you keep staring at the mountain, but you actually need to ask the people that would use your product, would you actually like if I make this modification, or how do you like the product as is without the modification? And then you're letting the sun in, because you can't close yourself off. At the end of the day, the consumer is going to be the one that's going to be in the driver's seat. It's going to spend the money. It's going to choose your product over the competition. So the more you engage with your consumer and get that market research out there, the more you're really letting the street be a two-way street, and not just, here I am pushing my product to you, but it's like a push and a pull as well. And I think that's so important for a successful entrepreneur, especially if you're a small business, that you can share what you're planning on doing for Black Friday, right? On Black Friday, I'm debating to do X, Y, and Z. In 2026, I'm going to do this, this, this. So like, in my mind, I have my calendar, but you don't know that I'm planning on releasing a book this year and one in January, because I haven't shared that yet. But once I share it, it puts the seed out there, and then the consumers can start thinking about it. And I think that is so important, because then your product, once it launches, it's not that hard to climb the mountain and actually sell it, because you already sold all this along the way. You already told them it would be coming, and you already engaged them in the conversation of the book covers or whatever your questions were. And I think there's this soft selling, this beauty of communication that makes you succeed much more.
Once again, listen and watching on Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today, Dr. Christiane Schroeter. Go to her website, drchristiane.com. Like always, want to say to you, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was absolutely amazing. To the audience, can't wait to get your bold dreams. Share them with me. And of course, I'm curious about that meme now, too.